Hi, welcome to the Nutritional Value of a Human, a presentation by Dr. Maureen Murphy. That's me, who for the past 38 years has taught chemistry at the high school level, graduate school, and undergraduate school level in one place or another. My research area is in the PhD area of chemistry and biochemistry, and I'm interested in the intersection of chemistry and culture. So let's get started with the nutritional value of a human. This presentation was first presented in March 2017 at the Capri Theater in Montgomery, Alabama as part of the nationwide Science on Screen series. It was funded by a major grant from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. Here's the movie poster from the Capri Theater for Science on Screen Night, which you notice the National Evening of Science on Screen was held Monday, March 16, 2017, and the movie shown was Soylent Green, starring Charlton Heston, Lee Taylor Young, and Edward G. Robinson, who, by the way, died 12 days after the movie was released. So let's set the stage for this movie and the nutritional value of a human. It's the year 2022. People are still the same. They'll do anything to do what they need, and they need Soylent Green. From the 1960s to the 1970s, world population was on everyone's mind. This is because of a 1968 book written by Stanford University professor Dr. Paul Ehrlich. The book was called The Population Bomb, and it predicted worldwide famine due to overpopulation. Fears of a population explosion existed in the baby boom years, but the book and its author brought this idea to a wider audience, and there were demonstrations in large cities about overpopulation during this time. Soylent Green, the movie, was released in 1973. It was based on the novel Make Room by Harry Harrison, who is a science fiction author and is shown here in this picture. A book critic by the name of A.D. Robertson commented on Harry Harrison and said his books toed the line between science fiction, adventure, humor, and satire, often with a strong anti-military bent, informed by his time in the U.S. Army Air Corps. During the 1950s and 60s, Harrison was the main writer of the Flash Gordon newspaper strip. He also was a very great illustrator of comics and was serialized in Comics Review. In 1966, he wrote a novel about overpopulation and consumption of the world's resources called Make Room, and this was used as a basis for the 1973 science fiction film Soylent Green, although some of the details and the themes were changed for the movie. Here is a picture from the classic trailer of Soylent Green, as you have seen the movie, and it starred Charlton Heston on the left and Edward G. Robinson on the right. While the book refers to Soylent steaks made from soy and lentil, thereby getting the word Soylent for steaks in the book, it makes no reference to Soylent Green, the processed food rations depicted in the film. And there's a screenshot from the film that shows the green wafers that are being manufactured in the movie, and they're called Soylent Green. And by now, you know that Soylent Green is people. This is the label on Soylent Green from the movie, and the Soylent Green was packaged, and the labels contain the following ingredients: people, water, lentils, sodium nitrite, modified potato starch, riboflavin, taurine, verdant hue for color. So why did our early ancestors eat each other? For a long time, historians and anthropologists have tried to study the history and science of cannibalism over the years. In particular, they wanted to know, why did it happen, when did it occur, and who's affected by cannibalism. This tests the ultimate boundaries of our cultural relativism and our sense of rituals. Most people don't associate cannibalism with the Soviet Union, but Timothy Snyder described in his book Bloodlands the 1933 Stalin-imposed famine in Ukraine that was so severe that cannibalism became surprisingly prevalent. The state had to set up an anti-cannibalism squad, and hundreds of people were accused of eating their neighbors, or in some cases, as depicted in this picture from Snyder's book, their family members. The fact that many Americans may have never heard of cannibalism during the Soviet-induced starvation of Ukrainians illustrates yet another fact about cannibalism. Cannibalism is something no one ever wants to think about. It's relegated to disgust, tabloid voyeurism, and lame jokes, and all those contribute to a general ignorance of the subject. So returning to the question, why did our early ancestors eat each other? Fortunately, in 2017, James Cole, an archaeologist at the University of Brighton in England, published a study called Assessing the Caloric Significance of Episodes of Human Cannibalism in the Paleolithic. This was published in the journal Nature Scientific Reports, and he used archaeological evidence to show that hominid species were eating each other as early as the Pleistocene era, prompting Cole to wonder whether or not humans constituted a nutritious snack. Armed with his curiosity, Cole set out to calculate the number of calories contained within the human body. The Pleistocene epoch, often referred to as the Ice Age, is the geological epoch that lasted from about 2.6 million years at the Yellow Arrow on up to the top to about 11,700 years ago. Well, Cole calculated the caloric content of nearly all edible parts of the human body and reported this in his research paper, from the loin to the ribs to the tender rump, and concludes that when people have eaten people, it usually hasn't been for nutrition. Most incidents of human cannibalism occurred during the Paleolithic period, from 2.5 million to 10,000 years ago, a range that easily includes the first appearance of humans, Homo sapiens. Now, to the untrained eye, human remains are just human remains, and once the flesh is off the bone, it's nearly impossible to determine if it's decomposed or if it's been devoured. Archaeologists, however, are experts at spotting the unlovely clues of a human becoming a meal, including parallel cuts, marks on the bone, the absence of a cranium, which would provide access to the brain for someone to eat, and jagged breaks and scorching of bones, both of which suggest attempts to get at the marrow. In Cole's research article in Table 3, he documented 9 sites of Paleolithic cannibalism. And here they are on this graphic here. And you see, of the 9 sites documented where cannibalism was found, they span from the years 936,000 years ago to about 14,280 years ago. 3 out of the 9 sites showed evidence of warfare or ritual cannibalism, whereas 2/3 of the sites showed evidence of nutritional cannibalism or starvation cannibalism. Cole calculated that assuming a minimum daily requirement of 2,400 calories per adult, one modern human would provide barely half a day's calorie needs for a tribe of 25 people. For Neanderthals, or for anatomically modern humans living in the Paleolithic era, when the daily exertion of a human was greater and caloric needs were higher, a single human body would provide just a third of a day's requirements for a tribe of 25. To put this in graphic format, a primitive cow would provide 367,000 calories worth of lean muscle, whereas a bison would provide 612,000 calories, a woolly rhinoceros 1.26 million calories, a woolly mammoth would provide 3.6 million calories, and a woolly human just 55,275 calories from fat. So it would stand to reason that if you had plenty of non-humans around to eat, that you could get more caloric content from a mammoth or a cow or a bison than you could for you and your tribe's people than from a human. Jeffrey Klein in 2017 published an article in Time magazine, "Why Did Cannibals Eat Other People?" Hint, it's not for the calories. And here's a graphic comparing the average calories for parts of the human body. Now note, although there's a woman depicted here, the caloric content based on Cole's article is based on humans eating a human male. And so we don't really know what the caloric content would be for humans eating a female. So notice the brain is worth nutritionally 2,706 calories. The most caloric parts of the human body are the thighs, coming in at 13,355 calories, and the skin, a little bit more than 10,000 calories. The skeleton is worth 25,332 calories, but not many humans really do eat bones. In an email to Time, James Cole, the author of the scientific study, wrote, "It might be that once the kill has happened, it would make sense to eat the flesh either as a waste not, want not, or perhaps as a warning. In truth, we will never really know the true motivations, and they may be different for each episode," said Cole. "What happens in the Paleolithic, it seems to stay in the Paleolithic." So I decided to make a nutrition fact label for the nutritional value of a human, which is seen on the right, and I decided to compare it to a nutritional fact label that I found for a 1 serving potato, about 148 grams, about 1/4 pound. And you see for the potato, there are 110 calories per serving. That's 1 serving per potato. And if you scroll on down and look, you'll see that the potato provides 2% of your daily requirement of calcium, 6% of iron, 30% of vitamin C. If you look at the label I made for the serving size of a 165-pound average man, 75 kilograms with bones and organs, servings per human 1, you see the caloric content total is 84,854 calories. Calories from fat, 55,275. So if you were to consume a human, you're consuming a huge amount of fat. As far as your percent daily value required, your total fat, you would, if you ate this human 165-pound serving size, the total fat would give you 9,392% of your required minimum daily needs for fat. 1,320% your minimum daily requirement of sodium. 13,854% of your required cholesterol, and 29,700% of your required protein. Notice 0% vitamin C and 27,225% of your iron. At the bottom I wrote that this food is 100% natural but may contain traces of antibiotics, drugs, and alcohol. In 2013, archaeologists found evidence of cannibalism in colonial Jamestown, Virginia, in our country. This was an indication of just how desperate life must have been in the winter of 1609 when the Jamestown settlers were starving. They found evidence from markings on the skull of a 14-year-old girl that indicated she'd been eating. And here in this picture, archaeologists are showing a reconstruction of the Jamestown cannibalism victim based on the evidence from the skeleton. In March 2001 in Germany, a bizarre incident of cannibalism occurred when a German citizen posted an internet ad seeking a young man willing to be slaughtered and eaten. The ad was answered by another German person. The original poster of the ad, Armin, stabbed the victim in the neck with a kitchen knife, then chopped him up in several pieces and placed him in the freezer. Over the next few weeks, Armin defrosted and cooked parts of the victim in olive oil and garlic and eventually consumed 20 kilograms of human flesh. The murderer was convicted of manslaughter in 2004. A retrial in 2006 found him guilty of murder, and he has been sentenced to life imprisonment after that. 2 songs, though, in Germany are based upon this case, which began on the internet. This is a photograph of an airplane crash in 1972 that occurred in the Andes Mountains. Members of the Old Christians rugby team are standing near the fuselage of this crash. It was an Air Force plane from Uruguay that crashed while ferrying the soccer team to a match in Chile. And Flight 571 crashed in the Andes in 1972, and for the survivors of the crash, it was months before they were rescued. So they survived by eating the flesh of the dead people who died in the crash. One of the survivors of the Chilean soccer team crash was Robert Canessa. At the time, he was a 19-year-old medical student when the plane went down. In the intervening years, he became one of Uruguay's best-known pediatric cardiologists. The lessons that he learned on the mountain never left him. He wrote a book called I Had to Survive: How a Plane Crash in the Andes Inspired My Calling to Save Lives. It tells the story of what occurred on that mountaintop and how it inspired him to devote his life in giving hope to others. In the book, Dr. Canessa says, cannibalism is when you kill someone. So technically, what they did is what was known as anthropophagy. In other words, they didn't kill the people, they ate the people who were dead. I've had these discussions for years. I don't care. We had to eat these dead bodies and that was it. The flesh had protein and fat which we needed, like cow meat. I was also used to medical procedures, so it was easier for me to make the first cut. The decision to accept it intellectually is only one step though. The next step is to actually do it. And that was very tough. Your mouth doesn't want to open because you feel so miserable and sad about what you have to do. Other well-documented examples of cannibalism include the Essex sinking in 1820, the Donner Party in 1846 and 1847. In the 1850s and 60s, there were ships that landed in harbors off the coast of New Zealand, and in one particular incident, 61 to 70 Europeans were eaten by the Maori indigenous tribes of New Zealand. Some murderers listed here, the most well-known of which is Jeffrey Dahmer, were known to have devoured their victims after killing them. In fact, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, Dahmer Monster, released in 2022, is one of the most popular movies now on Netflix. If you want to see details about how Jeffrey Dahmer murdered and cannibalized his victims, then maybe you should watch it. I'd like to thank you for your attention. This has been fun sharing this information with you. On this slide here are our children, Kelly on the left and Lauren on the right, with some puppies. And they said, Mom, you know, since you're a scientist, in the future, say in the 2080s or 90s, maybe you should donate your body to science or maybe for food sources. And then they created this graphic for me. They said we could make a product called I Can't Believe It's Not Mother, and you could save the world. So I'm thankful for your attention, and I hope you have a great Halloween, and see you later.